First things first, Merry Christmas and or Happy Holidays for those who celebrate. I'm incredibly grateful that you're all here with me. It's been an awesome year, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what comes next in 2024. But before then, let's talk about the day before. And I'm not talking about Christmas Eve. I'm talking about the Disastrous video game that launched on December 7th, 2023. To overwhelmingly negative reviews, we're sitting at 15% right now from 23,813 reviews. Now, you will note that the game is no longer purchasable or available on the Steam store. And that's because this game launched so disastrously that the studio shut down and the game itself is shutting down. While before we got some vague hints as to what the fate of the game will be, we now have official confirmation that servers will go offline early next year. But before then, a few things to note about this game. Right now, if it were listed on the Steam Hall of Shame here, the worst reviewed games on Steam, it would be roughly second or third place right now, tied with Overwatch 2. And then looking at numbers right now, you can see that there's nobody playing this game anymore because the game is just kind of delisted and no longer available on Steam. But before that, we got an all-time peak of 30,000 players, and that quickly plummeted into the 4 digits and eventually 3 and then 2 digits. People very quickly realized what a scam this was and just kind of decided that their time is better spent elsewhere. The reviews, I mean, lots of 1 out of 10s. Here's a 1 out of 10. Here's a 1 out of 10. Here's another 1 out of 10. It is considered to be the worst game of 2023, and we're talking about a year where we saw the launches of games like Lord of the Rings Golem, the Kong game, and there's also that one Walking Dead game that got critically panned and got, I think, even worse review scores than Lord of the Rings Golem did, but the day before really takes the cake. It didn't take long before the Discord community just lit on fire and decided to declare this game a scam, which it absolutely is. Tons of people pointing out bugs and glitches like phasing through floors or getting stuck behind environments. Some hilarious glitches like this one where NPCs for some reason grow in size and behave in all kinds of hilariously bizarre ways. The best thing you can say about this game is that it offered some laughs here and there, laughs like these. And yeah, plenty of people just highlighting what a disastrous release this was. The game isn't even what it was advertised to be, and that's really the most egregious part, is the marketing surrounding this game. This was advertised to be a survival zombie MMO, and it ended up being an extraction shooter that's not really even functional. The gameplay is all kinds of disastrous. The bugs and glitches are prominent. The combat even, it feels like complete ass because it takes like a second before zombies react to your shots. No basic features like vaulting over environments. Nothing to do in the open world. It's just empty. The quests are incredibly basic. The gameplay loop is just, I mean, not fleshed out in any way, shape, or form. You can hardly call this a video game. It's just the exoskeleton of some kind of software that never came to be realized. Now, we do know that on December 11th, Fantastic Studio announced the closure of its studio, and they try to wash their hands a little bit, claim that they didn't engage in nefarious activities by emphasizing that they didn't take any money from the public during the development of the day before. There were no pre-orders or crowdfunding campaigns. But I mean, none of that is relevant when you consider the egregious levels of false marketing that this game engaged in, showing footage that looked much better and much shinier than what came out in the end, presenting this game as one thing when it came out as something else entirely. And they put this out at whatever, even if it's $40, it's charging too much money. And they let people spend money on a product that was not as advertised, nowhere close, and not just in terms of quality. Again, it's not even the same genre of game. It's not really a survival MMO. It is a piss-poor extraction shooter. It's no surprise that people refunded this game en masse or stopped playing altogether. It's no surprise that eventually led to the day before no longer being purchasable on Steam after Fantastic Studio realized that this is a venture that could not be maintained for the long term. And then things look even shadier when you consider that the CEO of Fantastic, Eduard Gotovstev, decided to just kind of go AWOL and delete all of his accounts from Twitter to LinkedIn, delete all of the YouTube videos with a false marketing feature there. The one saving grace to all of this is that refunds seem to be handled pretty well, with the publisher of the game, Mitona, promising that they're working with Steam to open up refunds for any players who choose to make a refund, and it was stated that it doesn't matter how long you've played this game for, refunds will be issued with no questions asked. And then comes the latest development. We didn't know before what was going to happen to the day before, as stated in fantastic statement here. At the moment, the future of the day before and prop night is unknown, but the servers will remain operational. But plenty of people figured it was only a matter of time before servers would shut down, and we finally got that announcement 3 days ago on December 22nd, 2023, when the official The Day Before Twitter page posted the following statement. Dear community, we regret to inform you that the development company Fantastic has officially ceased operations, and as a result, The Day Before will be retired and the servers will be turned off on January 22nd, 2024. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, the game's days were numbered when the studio shut down like 4 days after the game's launch, but they did say the future was unknown, so I guess there was the potential of the game being handed down to another developer for them to actually build a freaking game off of this or something. But no, what ended up ultimately happening was that they decided that there's no point in maintaining this game that really is such a bare bones software that there's no way to really make it into something unless you pour tons of manpower and resources into it. And there's no point in doing that given the negative association surrounding The Day Before, because it just ended up being a massive scam. And so servers will go down on January 22nd, 2024. This is the official date in which the game will officially die. This must be like a world record. This is a live service that has died just 45 days after its initial launch. We have seen plenty of disastrous live service launches, but even by those standards, The Day Before stands above all of those and sticks out in a way that is unprecedented. The statement continues, as previously communicated, Mitona, as the investor, has been working in collaboration with Steam to facilitate refunds for all game purchasers. For any players that have not already had their purchase refunded, Steam will now proactively refund all remaining players. I don't know if I've ever seen this happen where a game fails so badly that Steam decides to just mass refund everyone who bought the game with no questions asked, whether they want the refund or they actively pursue that refund or not. Seems like, no, we got to give the money back. There's no way it's acceptable for anyone to spend money on this when it's in the condition that it is and when it's shutting down just 45 days after launch. And this highlights just how generous Steam's refund policy is. It's reasonable enough in terms of the grace period that they give you, and when a disaster like this happens, Steam is willing to cooperate and take some semblance of responsibility. I mean, Steam did host a game that had all the red flags you could imagine, and Steam was ultimately a platform where this game was hosted en masse. And so on some level, Steam has to take responsibility and needs to have the appropriate policies to ensure that customers don't get screwed over by something like this. Unfortunately, they do and are issuing mass refunds, which is definitely a big plus. Again, that's the one thing about this whole situation that kind of salvages this, is that anyone who spent money on this will be getting that money back. But that doesn't change the fact that Fantastic did hype people up and did waste a lot of people's excitement and their commitment to seeing this game through, and their sort of loyalty towards this game and the community just getting fucked over so badly. Like, all of that is still in play. So just because you get money back doesn't mean that there wasn't enthusiasm and energy spent on something that ultimately ended up being a giant middle finger to everyone who, saw the potential of this and try to support it the best they could. And, it's goodwill that you completely tarnished and took advantage of, and that stain will always remain. The statement concludes with, we extend our gratitude for the community support throughout the project's life. Unfortunately, without a development team, we had no alternative choice but to officially close the project. It would seem as though maybe they try to contact other developers to be like, hey, do you want to maybe finish this game? And nobody wants to touch this thing with a 10-foot pole. So I imagine that even if that were the case of they try to find a new developer, no developer in their right minds would dare take on this project. It's got too much of a bad history. The software itself, there's not enough of a solid foundation to build off of. It's just dead. It's poison to even touch this. So, of course, the ultimate fate of this project was for it to shut down for good. We sincerely thank all of our supporters throughout this journey and wish you all a happy holiday season. I don't think anyone cares for Fantastics and this development studio's gratitude, given how badly they screwed customers over. Scrolling down, we'll find plenty of people just kind of mocking this whole situation. People are comparing this to Abandon. Well, Abandon didn't actually launch, and at the very least, the creator of this had the foresight and the sense to just fade away from existence and stop bothering people with something that we know will never live up to what it's being advertised to be. Abandon didn't take any money. It just kind of was abandoned, whereas the day before had the audacity to launch and waste people's time and money. So there is some difference there, but it is a scam akin to Abandoned, where it is this development studio that came out of nowhere promising the moon, basically, and delivering nothing short of just a crap cake. And plenty of people just feel like they were scammed, that they had their excitements lifted at a game whose initial footage presented a kind of experience that they would have loved to see fully realized. This is very much a development studio that played with a lot of people's emotions. So yeah, there's plenty of, disdain against this studio, and there's no semblance of sympathy against them. It's just people saying, just kind of fuck off. Now, one last thing I'd like to address before closing out this video is this accusation that Fantastic is trying to rebrand itself with another name and trying to get back into the game development scene. So this is a tweet by Connor that reads, Fantastic is trying to hide its identity by rebranding to 8 points for the game. The Wild 8 is getting slammed with negative reviews, warning people that the game was released by scam artists. And the reason this speculation came to light is because if you go to steamdb.info right now, you can see that the development studio for the Wild 8, the name has been changed from Fantastic to 8 points. And so the speculation was that this was Fantastic trying to squirm and sneak their way back into the game development scene, but with another name and basically with a fake mustache. But Fantastic have gone out of their way to clarify what's going on here. They tweeted the following on December 13th. We're closing. Rumors suggesting we have changed our name are not true. We have not been affiliated with the Wild 8 for many years. Read it to see for yourself. So as it turns out, Fantastic and 8 points are not the same entity, but rather Fantastic was at one point involved with the development of this game, The Wild 8, but then the development of the game was transferred over to this new developer, 8 points, and that wasn't changed until recently because of the negative association that Fantastic has now, and so the publisher decided to finally update who the real developer of this game is in the present day. So as Eurogamer states right here, Hype Train Digital has confirmed to Eurogamer why it changed the developer on Steam for the Wild 8 from Fantastic to 8 points. It was due to the game receiving negative reviews on Steam following the debacle with the day before. And there's a direct quote that reads, Fantastic was the original developer of the Wild 8, but after the game's release in early access, the developers decided to discontinue work on the project due to internal reasons within the studio. So it looks like the day before is not the only game that Fantastic has abandoned. Hype Train Digital took over the development independently. All business relations with Fantastic were terminated in 2017, but they happened to be continued to be listed as the developer of the Wild 8. Following the release of the day before on December 7th, 2023, a wave of negative reviews for the Wild 8 began, unrelated to the game itself, but associated with the original development studio Fantastic. Yesterday, we made the decision to remove any mention of the developer Fantastic from the game's page. So basically, we had terminated our association with Fantastic back in 2017, but because on the Steam page, the developer is listed as Fantastic, people assumed that the Wild 8 was being developed by them or that we had some kind of association with them, and we wanted to make it clear that our association is over and has been over for a while by changing the developer name from Fantastic to 8 points. That way people will stop harassing us over a company who we're no longer associated with. That's kind of the basic explanation of what happened here. So for those who decided to leave a negative review for the Wild 8 because they wanted to warn people that, this is a scam and that this is just Fantastic rebranding themselves and masquerading themselves, do keep that in mind and don't, go after this publisher and developer. Their association with Fantastic has been over for a while now. The Wild 8 has nothing to do with that company, so don't review bomb them or don't punish the Wild 8 and its developer. I get why people would initially think that this was fantastic, trying to rebrand and sneak their way back into game development, but turns out that's not the case, and by review bombing the Wild 8 or by trying to punish them, you're not actually punishing the right people. This is all just a big misunderstanding. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, with this, I believe the Day Before saga will conclude. I believe this is as far as this story goes. The game will shut down just 45 days after being active, and the game will go down in history as one of the greatest scams and a major cautionary tale when something looks too good to be true, like the Day Before, and the marketing is handled the way they've been handling it, and we start seeing weird things like they're looking for volunteers to help finish the game. And we see all the red flags that we saw with the Day Before, with how many times it was delayed and how much they refused to show us like proper gameplay days before or weeks before its launch, before delays continue to happen. When our instincts tell us that everything about this seems wrong, it's good to be cautious, and it's good to not kind of buy into the hype without asking some reasonable questions, which is what happened with the Day Before, and all of those questions were answered when the game launched as disastrously as it did. So, yeah, this is one for the history books, ladies and gentlemen. I've never seen anything like this in the many years that I've been covering video games. And it's just a shame to see that projects like Abandon and now the Day Before are playing with people's goodwills, because people often want to support up-and-coming developers who are making projects that seem to have a lot of potential. But when that goodwill is, again, taken advantage of like this, it makes it harder for people to trust these kinds of up-and-comers. And there are plenty of up-and-comers who are legitimate, but people are now going to be more wary of those and are going to be kind of less prone to just fully trust them, the ones that are legitimate and the ones that are making a game that is an actual product and has a lot of potential. And so this kind of hurts, I think, the indie game scene or the up-and-comers of game development scene, but hopefully those legitimate up-and-comers will, approach marketing in an ethical way. And as long as you show the game as it's meant to be shown, and as long as it is representative of the final product, and the final product lives up well enough to what you marketed, I think you'll ultimately be fine. But yeah, I think people are going to be a lot more careful about just being overly excited or overly hyped or becoming too loyal to something that kind of comes out of nowhere that seems to have a lot of potential from a development studio that, is new and are trying to make a name for themselves. But I guess we'll see. In the meantime, though, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on this whole The Day Before situation and how it all concluded. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.